All right, and here we go. Welcome into the Rocky Top Insider post-game show. Hey, we are here after the season opener here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Tennessee took on Ball State, and they were victorious by a score of 59-10. Ryan, fun night, I would say, overall, as Tennessee gets the season open on a Thursday. What you kind of take away from the game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much to really truly is to glean, but, Tennessee came out and did what they're supposed to do. And, I thought about it leading into the game that this was the first game of Josh Heupel's second season. The first game of Jeremy Pruitt's second season was the loss to Georgia State. Not that I expected this to be a close game. I think that Georgia State team is probably a lot better than this Ball State team. I think this Tennessee team is certainly probably a lot better than that Tennessee team was at that point in the season. But when you look back at that Georgia State game, Ty Chandler fumbles on the first drive. Georgia State quickly scores, disastrous. Just the complete opposite. Couldn't have been a better start for Tennessee. Tamarian McDonald intercepts the pass on a trick play, the first play of the game, and then Jalen Hyatt scores a touchdown the next play. And the officials had to push Josh Heupel back to the sideline as he was hyping up the fans
he was getting rowdy
here in the north end zone. And from there, it was just a complete onslaught for Tennessee. And the Vols did what they needed to do, and that was take care of business really without breaking the sweat.
Yeah, they certainly did. When we found out that Tennessee was going to move this game to a Thursday, we kind of knew why. We knew that Tennessee wanted almost a stage to themselves, a stage on a Thursday night where they could put their brand of football in front of the world to see. You see these Neyland Stadium renovations around us. Ryan, I think on that front, what they were hoping for, maybe out of playing this game on a Thursday, you are successful. Tennessee debuts a lot of great amenities, but more importantly, Tennessee's offense debuts exactly what it showed last year in the fact that it was a high-powered, high-scoring offense, fast tempo. They always wanted to push the pace. I felt like there were at times where they were just plainly overwhelming Ball State's defense, just with the speed and the tempo and the physicality that they were going at. But one of those guys in particular made his debut for Tennessee tonight, wide receiver Brew Mccoy. I was really impressed with what I saw from him. You could tell that, man, being out there on the field meant something to him. He was going as hard as he could to each play. He was going past the whistle till each play. I remember there was one play on the sideline right over here where he had every ability just to take one quick step out of bounds and the play's over and you move on. But he didn't. He made a little cut at the very end, turned back into a couple of defenders just to get maybe one more yard. But to me, that really showed just how much he was excited to be out here. You could tell Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt were talking about it after the game. I liked what I saw from Brew Mccoy tonight. Yeah, certainly. I think it was a really good debut, and Josh Heupel had a lot of positive things to say about kind of how he adjusted the tempo, how he adjusted to Tennessee's first offense, for the fact that it's the first game he's played, since the 2020 season, how he kind of came out with the right mindset. So you're right. The play you mentioned was probably my biggest takeaway from McCoy as well, but I thought it was a strong start for him, and for Tennessee's offense as a whole, it really was a strong start. Starting offense was in 8 drives. I believe they scored 45 points in those 8 drives, 6 touchdowns, 1 field goal, and then they went 3 and out 1 drive in the second quarter. So when Hendon Hooker was in the game, and we say the starting offense, they rotated a lot of bodies at receiver early in the game. They rotated a lot of bodies at running back, or at least 2 bodies, Jalen Wright and Jabari Small early. So it was a lot of guys besides Hendon Hooker. But when Hendon Hooker was in the game, Tennessee's offense was about as smooth and as efficient as you could hope for. Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways we expected the rotation. At least you and I did. We had talked about it certainly going into the week as well. We know that Tennessee's got to play Pittsburgh next week. There's not another cupcake game in between for Tennessee to maybe get some of those guys certain reps that they didn't need to. So that's why I did think it was important for Tennessee to get those rotations in quickly. And you saw it on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, which kind of leads me to my next point. Tennessee could be, right now, still questionable. Coach Heupel said after the game that they're going to reevaluate these 2 players next week. But D. Williams, a defensive back that I didn't really necessarily expect too much would have an impact on this game, but Juwan Mitchell, a linebacker who was listed as one of the co-starters or starters, if you will, for Tennessee's Week 1 depth chart, did not play today. Now, Tennessee certainly didn't need him in a 49-point win, but thinking ahead till next week, that is something I'm certainly interested in.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something worth keeping an eye on. At least was a surprise to me that he wasn't able to go, and I think kind of just echoing the theme of the offense playing a lot of guys. I thought the defense played a ton of guys. I mean, in the first quarter, I think they played 5 linebackers, inside linebackers, I should say, and man, they didn't play once Juwan Mitchell went down last year, they didn't hardly ever play more than 3. And granted, if they were playing Pittsburgh tonight, they probably wouldn't have played 5 linebackers in the first quarter.
Yeah.
But certainly more trust with those guys, and that was kind of the case, I thought, across the board. The 2 safety spots, there wasn't a ton of rotation, but the 2 corner spots, the star spot, and then obviously along the defensive line as well, a lot of rotation as Tennessee got a bunch of different bodies involved.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, there was a lot of good to this game, only a little bit. That obviously, no game is going to be perfect, and there are always going to be improvements. I thought that maybe one of those improvements that I'd like to see carrying forward from the defensive line. I like to see them be able to get the quarterback a little bit more. Now, you think about Ball State, and you think about guys like Byron Young and Tyler Barron. Man, this should be a game where they were dominating. Now, not necessarily dominant tonight, still good, still productive. Hey, it's only game 1. I want to see how they continue to improve throughout the year, because we look at the next 3 games for Tennessee. One of them is at Pittsburgh, and the other one hosting Florida. So they need to get this thing going, to get the ball rolling as quickly as they can. Yeah,
and I completely agree. I think if you're saying the biggest negative from the game for Tennessee, it was to play the defensive line. I would say I'm less concerned with what you saw from the pass rush. I thought Ball State did a good job of getting the ball out quick, and there were some times Tennessee got pressures. Really, and this is a Ball State offense that does return 5 starters along the offensive line, but I thought some of the run defense, you just didn't get a whole lot of penetration. It wasn't bad by any means. I think Tennessee's linebackers played well against the run, but there just weren't a whole lot of plays made in the backfield. That's going to be tested big time next week. Pitt survives a crazy thriller against West Virginia. Great game. And I think we talked about in the offseason, Pat Narduzzi wanting to move towards being more of a run-heavy team. A lot of offensive linemen back. That certainly seemed to be the theme. Tennessee's run defense will be tested in a big way next week.
Yeah, it absolutely will. Any kind of final closing thoughts on the game today? Maybe a little offense, maybe a little defense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you got a couple of new guys scored the first touchdowns. Walker Merrill,
that's very true.
Jimmy Holiday, and then
Dylan
Sampson, and I guess maybe that would be another takeaway too. Dylan Sampson. Once Tennessee went to the backups in the second half, it was heavy Dylan Sampson, and then a little bit of Justin Williams-Thomas. It definitely seems like Sampson's ahead of Williams-Thomas at this point.
Yeah.
And then looking at the defense, I thought basically. D. Williams obviously out. He's the 4th corner. It would have been interesting to see how much he played. But Haddon, Christian Charles, and then Warren Burrell, those 3 guys I thought rotated pretty evenly. That's kind of was my expectation, and I think you'll continue to see that. Those guys getting a pretty even amount of reps for the 2 corner spots between 3 players.
Yeah, and then if I have only one small thing to add to that, and this is not going to be a shock to anybody, this is not going to surprise anybody, but once again, Cedric Tillman looked great out there. He is going to be so important for this Tennessee team. You can tell that him and Hendon Hooker have really continued to build this relationship throughout the offseason. You've seen that over the last month throughout training camp. But, man, he looked great out there on the field tonight. I believe finishes with 6 catches for 69 yards. No touchdowns, but I figure that'll come soon. So that's kind of my final takeaway on the night. Again, that's not going to be a surprise to anybody, but certainly Cedric Tillman, this is a guy that Tennessee's going to need to get going quickly. Seems like they're on their way. Yeah,
I agree, and I thought it was a good night for most of the established guys on Tennessee's offense. I thought Jabari Small ran the ball really well tonight. Jalen Wright probably is a little less established, but I thought he ran the ball well too. And really, you look early in the game, not that Jalen Wright didn't get opportunities, but it was heavy Jabari Small. I don't think this is going to be a 1A, 1B situation, at least to start the season in Tennessee's backfield. I think it's pretty clear that Jabari Small is running back number 1 for the Vols to start the year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Ryan, well, what do you say we go ahead and get out of here? We've got some work to do, and then we are already flipping the script over to next week. That'll be a giant matchup between Tennessee and Pittsburgh. Possibly a top 25 matchup.
Yeah, I'd say a pretty good chance.
I'd say a pretty good chance, too. No doubt about it. All right, well, we are going to get out of here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Hey, go ahead and check out RockyTopInsider.com. We will have you covered there with all the different post-game coverage you could possibly want. We'll see you next week. This is the Rocky Top Insider post-game show.